From the Samsung Production Studios in the heart of Hazleton, Pennsylvania, it's your News 13.
Brought to you by SSPTV and the Standard Speaker.
The Boston Marathon has always been a celebration of joy and accomplishment. Yesterday, it was marred by terror. Interviews with local residents who were there, the latest on the tragedy and investigation, our top story on News 13 for this Tuesday. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kathy Baczynski. The tragic details of the Boston Marathon attacks are starting to come out. We now know that 176 people were injured in the two bomb blasts, which occurred at the marathon finish line at just about the time the largest wave of runners was expected to cross. 3 people were killed, including 8-year-old Martin Richard, who came to watch his father run. The Boston Globe reports he hugged his dad at the finish line, then returned to the sidewalk with his mom and sister when the bomb went off. He died. His sister lost her leg. The mother is badly injured. 17 blast victims are still fighting for their lives, but those who responded to the tragedy are being credited with saving many.
At this point, the loss that we have suffered is enormous. But thanks to the efforts of EMTs, police officers, firefighters, volunteers, ordinary citizens, and of course doctors, nurses, and the medical staff at Boston's world-class hospitals, we can say with absolute certainty that more lives were saved. For this, we can all give thanks.
The FBI says it has no hard leads, but says the 2 bombs were concealed in backpacks and appear to be made in pressure cookers filled with shrapnel and set with timers. This morning, President Obama called the bombings terror, no matter who is responsible.
This was a heinous and cowardly act. And given what we now know about what took place, the FBI is investigating it as an act of terrorism. Anytime bombs are used to target innocent civilians, it is an act of terror. What we don't yet know, however, is who carried out this attack or why, whether it was planned and executed by a terrorist organization, foreign or domestic, or was the act of a malevolent individual.
A number of people from Luzerne and Schuylkill counties were in Boston to run in yesterday's marathon or cheer on loved ones in the race. Many were close by when the bombs exploded. News 13 spoke with several today. Christina Papa with one runner from Greater Hazleton who was only blocks away from the finish and knew her husband was waiting nearby.
Chris Mears' wife was only a few blocks away from the finish line when the explosions went off.
When people started saying explosion and bomb in our hotel, I immediately ran out the door and ran towards basically the finish line.
Mass confusion. That's how Drums resident Stacy Mears explains her experience when she was stopped along with thousands of other runners before they could reach the Boston Marathon's finish line yesterday.
All of a sudden, I see this whole big crowd stop. I'm like, okay. I'm like, no, you can't. I'm thinking to myself, you can't stop. You have to keep going. So I go up more, and people are like, no, you got to stop.
Stacy says most of the runners still wanted to finish the race and had no idea what was going on just a block away.
At this point, we had no idea if anyone died or anyone was injured. And we're like, well, we wanted to finish. You know, we were so close.
When Stacy finally found out about the explosion, she had only one thing on her mind, her husband, Chris.
I actually was in tears. I'm like, I had no idea what was going on. I was in tears, and then I even tried calling my husband, Chris, and at one point, when I even tried calling him, I couldn't even call him. I had to call my sister in D.C. just to get a hold of him.
Stacy says she walked and ran almost 40 miles yesterday by the time she finally met up with her husband.
Just the entire chaos and everything. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew where to go. We probably went, it was almost 6 o'clock until Stacy finally met up with where I was.
Thankfully, the Mears were not injured in the explosions. Stacy says this experience will only spark her to do more events. She plans to run the Boston Marathon next year. Christina Papa, News 13, Drums.
The heart-wrenching stories don't end there. 8 residents from Schuylkill County ran in the marathon, and as Matthew Petrillo tells us, they're lucky to still be alive.
It was a small makeshift bomb, but its explosion was heard around the world. And at least 8 people from Schuylkill County were there in Boston to hear it.
I heard it bang, I turned around and saw smoke.
Sandy Bergen of Pottsville says she finished the marathon just 13 minutes before the first explosion. She was in line waiting for water near the finish line where the first bomb went off.
It sounded just to me like, like fireworks or an M80 or Ripping Cannon type thing.
She and her running partner, Jennifer Burgess of Minersville, have been training for 20 weeks for the marathon. Burgess says she was just 2 blocks from the first explosion. Burgess says emergency personnel didn't want the runners together in one place for fear of another bomb, but didn't know where to disperse them either.
We didn't know where to go. They sent us to a hotel. Well, as we're approaching the hotel, the police say it's evacuated. They send us to the mall. As we approached the mall was evacuated. Then they sent us to the bus stop, which really made me nervous. So we just had to keep borrowing cell phones, and the service was out for a long time. So it took quite a while to get out of there and get back to a safe hotel.
Jennifer's husband was back in Minersville working at the time and couldn't reach his wife because all cell phone towers were blocked to prevent a possible remote explosion.
Yeah, it was starting to get stressful and scary, and we haven't heard from her at that point. That was the stressful part, no contact. And it was going on, and I'm thinking, why wouldn't she, call us? So that's when the stress was really building.
Jason eventually got into contact with Jennifer, who coaches at Minersville High School. Coach Jen trains high school athletes at this track almost every day. She herself has been preparing for the Boston Marathon for months here. And while she was one of the lucky ones who walked away from the tragedy, she says her heart goes out to families who were less fortunate.
I'm very fortunate that I was able to get, be away from that and not see actually what happened, because, the rest that were there that actually witnessed that, that's an absolute nightmare. So I'm glad that I didn't see it. It's probably going to take some time to really sink in.
Despite the tragedy, her husband says runners are dedicated. He says nothing will stop them from putting on their track shoes every day and encourages the same for others.
Everyone should just keep on running. Don't let them, we don't want to be living in fear.
Police say the blasts were likely detonated by timers, not by cell phones. 3 people were killed and more than 170 people were wounded. Boston police is working with the FBI to find a suspect in what they call the most complex crime scene they've dealt with. Matthew Petrillo, News 13, Schuylkill County.
One runner from Mountaintop had finished the race and was actually back in his hotel when the blast occurred, but he went back to the finish line this morning to see the devastation and remember the victims. Michael Bedrin spoke with the News 13 on his way back from Boston today. He said folks in downtown Boston were saddened and shocked this morning when they went to visit the finish line. Bedrin was in the second wave of runners yesterday and was able to finish the race. He says knowing that the people who were there cheering him on as he went past were probably injured made the event that much more tragic for him.
So humbled and exhilarated by the crowds and the volunteers that just lined that course, just thousands and thousands of people cheering, and in particular when you get to the end of the race and you come up and you turn onto Boylston Street and you see that finish line and you hear the crowds, those very people that moments ago were cheering for me, an amateur athlete from northeastern Pennsylvania, was just, very, very humbling. And it just makes it, all that more personal and tragic to have experienced that.
Mike says he plans to run in more marathons. He says his thoughts and prayers go out to those families who have lost loved ones during this tragedy. An update on the condition of A.J. Gorel, the Hazleton man who remains in the hospital after being badly beaten. News 13 spoke with A.J.'s family this morning. They say small improvements last week are being tempered by new developments. A.J. will undergo a major brain surgery tomorrow morning to relieve the amount of fluid building up in his brain, and a shunt will be implanted. Part of his skull that was removed to take pressure off his brain swelling will be replanted tomorrow as well. A.J. was found with life-threatening injuries on Lafayette Court just over a month ago. His family says with prayers and surgery, they hope to see improvements in A.J.'s health within the next few weeks. Now, we'd like to remind you of the community fundraiser this weekend to help the Gorel family with A.J.'s medical expenses. It'll be this Sunday afternoon at the 4th Street Pub in Hazleton. Everybody is welcome to come out, spend some time, and show their support for the family during this difficult time. And still ahead on News 13, a case of online bullying in one Schuylkill County community. We'll tell you why police are investigating. And good news, as the dangerous smokestack is on its way down and the businesses that were threatened are up and running again. The latest coming up on News 13. It's an apparent crime with internet clues. Shenandoah police have identified 2 bullies punching a smaller victim. The incident happened last week and was filmed from cell phones by witnesses. But as Matthew Petrillo reports, the victim has never come forward.
Sean Schlouch of Shenandoah says he can't help but feel angry after viewing disturbing video of his friend getting beaten up.
For no reason, actually.
News 13 isn't releasing the name of the boy or the teens who beat him up because they're all minors. But police say at least one suspect, a 14-year-old from Minersville, is on juvenile probation. Slouch says the teens who repeatedly struck at the boy's head have targeted him before.
And I think it's uncalled for. So I offered to help him walk around town with him just to be his escort.
The fight was captured on video and posted on Facebook. That's where police saw the video and then contacted the victim's mother, who Slouch says didn't know about the incident. The bullying attack started sometime after 7 o'clock near Holy Ghost Polish National Catholic Church, near Lloyd and Chestnut Streets in Shenandoah. Police say it started out West Mount Vernon Street. Then the victim tried running in the back of this church trying to escape, but the bullies wouldn't let him.
Not a fair fight.
There are 9 people involved, including 6 witnesses who are from Shenandoah. Police talked to the witnesses and 2 suspects who admitted their wrongdoings. They also talked to the victim, who identified the suspects, but no charges have yet been filed.
Watch your back and have friends escort you wherever you are, if you're around 12, 13 years old.
Police encourage all victims of crimes like bullying to report the incidents in private, either at the station or on the phone, instead of using social media where it's out in public. Matthew Petrillo, News 13, Shenandoah.
Well, the danger has been reduced, and the city of Hazleton has given the all clear for businesses and patrons to return to the Pocono Market Fair. Construction crews had been slowly dismantling the crumbling smokestack on an old industrial building behind the marketplace since yesterday morning. But by mid-afternoon today, they'd taken it down to the point where there was no longer the threat of it toppling onto the stores in the marketplace. Market Fair and all its stores were ordered closed on Friday and were to remain closed until the danger was removed. Store owners are relieved and want the patrons to know they're back in business.
I want them all to come back and, support us like they have in the past, and we'll be here to serve them.
Oh, I feel grand. And a lot of other people they just can't wait till it opens. It's a nice place, it's a clean place, and it's a good place to shop, and I just hope everybody comes back.
The city says the demolition of the rest of the smokestack and other vulnerable parts of the building will continue. The property owner will pay for the total demolition cost. And time now for our regional weather from the National Weather Service. Checking the radar, time for some April showers. As you can see, bands of rain showers, maybe even a thunderstorm moving through the region. It'll be like this on and off for the next couple of days. Our creative condition tonight is a sunny one, though. It's by Julia Pecora, a first grader at Valley Elementary School. And there she is, waving under the big yellow sun by her great big yellow house. Can't get much sunnier than that. Now let's take a look at News 13 weather from the National Weather Service for Greater Hazleton. Tonight, showers likely and possibly a thunderstorm with a low down to 44 degrees. And for Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 62. A slight chance of showers through the evening and into the overnight with a low around 45. Heading on to Schuylkill County, tonight showers likely through the evening, a low down to 48 degrees. And for Wednesday, we'll have some morning showers that'll give way to mostly cloudy skies with a high near 66. The nighttime low around 49 degrees. And let's check the winning midday lottery numbers. Good luck if you played. Today's daily number 030. The big 4, 1458. Quinto 68115. And the treasure hunt 5, 7, 14, 23, 27. Hope you won.
Good evening, everyone, and here's tonight's Talk of the Town report. First tonight, the FM Kirby Center will be hosting Joan Rivers for her show, My Life in Show Business, 135 Years and Counting. The show will be held Saturday, April 27th at 8 p.m. Tickets are now on sale for $39 and $47 at kirbycenter.org or by calling 570-826-1100. Also tonight, the 4th annual Making a Difference golf tournament will be held Friday, May 3rd at Sand Springs Country Club. All proceeds will benefit the American Cancer Society. For more information, please contact Janine, 570-956-3393. And finally, the Hazleton Art League will be hosting a performance of the Jazz Trio Sunday, April 21st at 1 p.m. The group plays several styles, including free jazz, standards, blues, and more. Donation is $5 for members and $10 for non-members. For more info, call 570-454-0092 or check out hazletonsartleague.org. That's tonight's Talk of the Town. News 13 would like to send sincere condolences to the family and friends of these recently departed. Marion E. Bogosh of South Tamaqua. Funeral will be held Friday at 11 a.m. from the E. Franklin Griffiths Funeral Home. Friends may call Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. and Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. Verna Kitchka of Hazleton. Services were held Monday from the St. John Byzantine Catholic Church. Arrangements were under the direction of the Frank J. Bonin Funeral Home. Daniel G. Fesco of Shenandoah. The Lukowitz-Orvitzfeld Funeral Home is in charge of arrangements. Eamon Hetler III of Hazleton. Funeral is Thursday at 8 p.m. in Lamar Christ Funeral Home. Friends may call Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. And Sandra Yenchik of McAdoo. Services will be held Wednesday at 11 a.m. in the St. Cunegunda Cemetery. The Stanley Ianowski Funeral Home is assisting the family. Tonight's obituaries have been brought to you by the Smilax Floral Shop located on 15th Street in Hazleton. For delivery to all local funeral homes, call 570-454-0111. And by Mia's, once again, the Hazleton area's #1 rated restaurant. Call 570-501-3410 for information on luncheon packages.
SSPTV Sports on News 13 with Fred Barletta Jr.
Seems like every year it comes down to Nanticoke, Hazleton area. Girls softball for the championship. You got two of the better programs in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's been that way for a while, but the last couple of years, Nanticoke has had the upper hands. Hazleton area trying to end that yesterday. Round 1, which I'm sure it'll be at least 2 or 3 rounds. Let's take a look. Let's go down to Hazleton Area High School, taking a look at some of the action on a rather crisp day, but nevertheless get it in. Rain's holding off, and early on, both Hazleton Area, Nanticoke playing it tight to the vest. These are two teams that play pretty good defense. They get pretty good pitching. That's always why it's there. Now, Hazleton Area's got Becky Demko on the mound, and well, Becky Demko, simply one of the best hurlers in all of the Wyoming Valley Conference. She doesn't hurdle as well. That'd be a different sport. But anyhow, she was mowing them down, and this game was close going throughout. But you would get a lot of great play. You know, they have a couple of youngsters that get the job done all season long so far, and they're all underclassmen that are getting that done. The law firm of Podlesny, Tribal Peace, and Uri. They're a pair of freshmen and a sophomore, and they came through in a big way yesterday. They had the timely hits, and that freshman, Mackenzie Uri, had the key play in the 7th inning, when she made a great defensive play with a catch, and then tagging a runner out at third. Nanticoke would get back-to-back hits, which probably would have tied the game had the play not been made by Uri, but you put it all together, and the Lady Cougars get round 1. Put it in the books. 2-1, Lady Cougars get the win over Nanticoke. These teams will play again in the month of May up in Nanticoke. Now, in other softball action, Pottsville, they get by Tamaqua, shut them out 4-0. Monoy gets the best of Schuylkill Haven, and Williams Valley shuts out Marion. They only had 2 hits, did the Phillies. Pretty tough to win when that happens. Baseball action. Very sloppy game for the Cougars. They committed 6 errors. Remember, Berwick only batted 6 times, so you're averaging an error an inning. Can't do that. Berwick gets by Hazleton Area 3-1. Cougars will be right back in action today. So will Berwick, as a matter of fact. MMI, meanwhile, they had Corey Rogers not only pound out a couple of base hits and an RBI, he would be the main attraction on the mound as well. MMI gets the win over GAR 7-1. So nice win for the Preppers. Down to the Schuylkill League, Pottsville trounces Tamaqua. They get the shutout from Nabholz. Meanwhile, Minersville, that number 10, they have won 10 in a row. They are off and rolling on this season. So Minersville obviously showing they're the team to beat. In volleyball, straight sets goes to Coughlin. They beat Hazleton Area 3-0. Now, here's what we've got today. As we said in baseball, you got Hazleton Area taking on Dallas. You got Blue Mountain at North Schuylkill, Panther Valley at Monoy. In tennis action, Berwick in town to take on Hazleton Area. Softball, you got PV at Monoy Area. And on the track, North Schuylkill will be hosting Minersville. Minor League Baseball, Well, what's new? Russ Kanzler is on fire in the month of April. 2 for 4, a couple of RBIs, average nearing 350. Wasn't enough. His Norfolk team, they got beat 5-4. Meanwhile, Kyle Landis gave up an earned run. Trenton knocks off Akron 5-3. Scranton Wilkes-Barre trounces Rochester, Lehigh Valley. They pound out an 8-3 win over Pawtucket. There is your schedule of minor league baseball today. It is basically the same matchups as you saw in the games. Weather permitting, they'll get them all in. It's been something everybody's been waiting for. The area's newest state-of-the-art facility is now open. We're talking about celebrations down at Sand Springs. It's going to seat up to 300. And whether it's private bridal suites that you're interested in or exquisite on-site ceremony location, this is the place you want to check out. Breathtaking floor-to-ceiling stone fireplaces, elegant cathedral ceilings, and they have the large windows overlooking the picturesque first hole of the fairway. White glove service from a friendly and courteous staff. It's celebrations at Clubhouse Drive, Drums, Pennsylvania, located within the Sand Springs complex.
Welcome to this week's Super Segment. I'm here with Dr. Antonelli and Dr. Lake to speak about the importance of educators in the Hazleton Area School District. Dr. Antonelli, you did receive a grant this year for a special project. Can you explain a little about that?
Yes, the Hazleton Area School District has been very fortunate to secure approximately $220,000 in Race to the Top money, largely through the efforts of Dr. Lake, to pilot a new teacher and administrator effectiveness instrument to assure quality education for all the students of this district.
Okay, so this will obviously help the administrators and the teachers do a little better, but there's a lot that goes into it. Can you explain some of the tools and practices that you do with the teachers that helps them become better at what they do?
For our teachers in the district, half of the staff will be trained this year, the other half next year with the Race to the Top money of the actual instrument and best practices based on Charlotte Danielson's work of a framework for teaching. We are now also piloting for our administrators another tool which is used for principals and assistant principals based on NISL and PILS, which is Pennsylvania Inspired Leadership Standards, in the framework of Danielson. So there are 4 domains for the teachers and for the principals, but there are 2 different expectations that we have for our principals and for our teachers. But for our administrators, we're really looking to see whether or not a culture of learning is created in each of our schools, in that our principals and our assistant principals are instructional leaders versus managers as we move into the 21st century, and also that they have a vision that they carry through the school year based on a goal set by data. And so this is where we are moving in the 21st century.
Can you explain a little bit, why is it important for all of these things to become a reality in our school district for the students?
As in Hazleton and across Pennsylvania and our nation, we are seeing that we need to look more and more of the effectiveness of the teachers and the administrators when it comes to the actual student. That we take a look at every student by name and that every student counts so that no one is left behind. And that's where this all came from, is No Child Left Behind. So it's such an important part that we further the professional development of our teachers and of our administrators so that we know what are best practices. And when I say best practices, what I really mean is what are teachers doing in schools in which students truly are showing learning taking place.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. That's this week's Super Segment. We'll see you guys next week.
Plenty more news and information headed your way on News 13. The latest on the terror in Boston and more from folks in our area who witnessed it. That story and much more news when the 13 crew comes right back.